So here we go. Our virtual network gateway is created. Now, there are certain configurations that we need to do for it to work. The objective is to have a point-to-site connection created between the laptop, which I have, and the VNet. In the VNet, we have the virtual network gateway there, which will then be acting as a VPN device. So we are creating a point-to-site connection. To create a point-to-site connection, I will first go and click on this point-and-site configuration. What we must type here is the address pool, which must not be more than /24 CIDR block range. So I'll choose 192 series here to keep it simple and call it as 192.168.30.0/24. Now, the next thing it's asking for is the root certificates. Yes, we will need certificates to encrypt the traffic. So there are several ways you can get a certificate. You can get a certificate from external provider like OpenSSL, Verizon, let'sencrypt.com. There are several companies and organizations that provide certificates, and we need to purchase from there. But because it's a lab environment, I will use a self-signed certificate. There are several ways of creating a self-signed certificate. You can create a self-signed certificate with makecert.exe or PowerShell or OpenSSL.exe. There are several ways. Now I will use makecert.exe to create a self-signed certificate. But if you are PowerShell savvy, you can go ahead and do that. We can demonstrate that here, but just for the sake of simplicity, we'll use makecert.exe. I'll just launch command prompt, and in my C drive, I have already created a folder called cert. There I have a file called makecert.exe. Now I will use this file to create the certificate. So there's a command that I have in my notepad here that I need to type in to create a certificate with the name Azure VPN root cert. So the name of the certificate is this. The length of the certificate is 2048 encrypted with SHA-1 algorithm. Eventually, the certificate will be named as Azure VPN root cert. Now this is what we gotta take it to Azure for encrypting the traffic. Now I'll just paste it on the command prompt to make sure that the certificate is created in my C cert folder. There you go. Hit enter, give it a minute, and then navigate to the folder and you will see a new file called Azure VPN root cert, right? You'll also find that in your certmgr.msc, which is certificate management store for user stores. Expand the personal store, and then under certificates, there is a certificate called Azure VPN root cert. There's a client cert as well. I just delete it because we don't need it for now. And what we have to do is export it. Yeah, click next. No, do not export the private key. And then select base 64 encoded. This is because if I select DER encoded binary, then the certificate will all be gibberish. We will not be able to read it. But with base 64 encoded, I'll be able to read it in a text format. So I'll click on next and then browse it to the same folder. Just to organize it, I'll keep it under the same folder called C cert and call it as root cert. Save it and let us proceed with the wizard. Finish it. Now if I go to the same path, I have this file called as rootcert.cer. What I gotta do is open this file with Notepad or Notepad++ better. And then the content of this will then be copied to Azure. I'll show that to you. Now I'll open Notepad++, Notepad++, there you go. And then click on File, Open, navigate to the path, which is in my C drive. There you go. And the file name is rootcert.cer. Just click on Open, and yeah, it's all is good. So make sure that you do not copy the whole thing. Do not do Control A, and that's because we just have to copy everything except the first line and the last line. Once you've copied this, go to your Azure portal and just paste it here in the public certificate data section. Name, this can be anything. Just type cert data there, that's fine. And then click on Save. If everything is alright, you'll not get any error messages. But if there are any problems with the certificate data, then you may encounter problems and the errors will then pop up. Mostly you get these errors when you're using not certified, not compatible text editor. Notepad++ is a compatible text editor, so there's no problem here. But click on save one more time because you might have noticed there's some error there. Hopefully it takes it in. Okay, looks like it has saved the settings successfully. Now what we have to do is download the VPN client, install it on your local device, and then you'll be able to connect to it using the VPN client. But before doing so, you must have a client certificate as well. To create a client certificate, you need to use the second command. So I'm using the first certificate here, and from this I'm creating a client certificate. This one is a root certificate, and now what we are creating is a client certificate. Using the same algorithm and length, I'll copy this, open the command prompt, and just paste it here. Okay, looks like we haven't copied it properly, so we'll go back, and this time paste it. Hit enter. That's it. Now if you go to your search store, you must have the two certificates here. One is a root certificate, another is a client certificate. Good. Now go back to the Azure portal and then click on this download VPN client. Okay, so the VPN client is downloaded now. So I will extract this into another folder so that we can take a look at it. What you will see is that there are different executables for x86 version and there's one for 64-bit version. Now, since I'm using a 64-bit version, I'll double click on it and then let that get installed on my machine. Sometimes your antivirus may block this installation because it's an executable. It's not signed by Microsoft, so it may just stop the execution and you may get some random error messages like this, right? Windows cannot access the file. So I'm using Norton on my machine and it has automatically looked at the executable and it thinks it's not right file. So I'll just ignore this message. Looks like it has also deleted the file from my computer. So I'll go to view details and see if my antivirus has options to restore the file and also whitelist this particular file. Yeah, so I'll just click on restore here and then yes, exclude this from future scans. Absolutely. So if you got different antivirus, let's say McAfee or Kaspersky or something, look at the options to how you can whitelist this path and whitelist the executable. It's okay, it's not malicious. Just double click on it. This time the installation must just go through. Click on yes. There you go. You may see a few flashes of the command prompt like that, and that's done. Now how do you verify whether the client exists or not? Well, you just go to the network connection properties. Yeah. Now I usually use a shortcut called ncpa.cpl control panel shortcut. Go there and then you will see a specific icon for Microsoft Azure VNet 1, something like this, right? This is different. Now double click on that and then click on this little icon and look at the options as to how you can connect it. Done. There you go. Click on connect. All right. Looks like we are connected now. Very good. So now I have a private tunnel from my laptop to the virtual network in Azure. I've already created a virtual machine in Azure. So what you will see is a virtual machine that is created in my virtual network 1 and it has a private address 10.20.30.5. I would of course be able to connect with a public IP address, no problem. But the idea is to route the traffic privately through the VPN. So I'll copy this and just for testing purposes, I'll see if I can telnet to the virtual machine using a private IP and not a public IP. 3389 is the port number for RDP. There you go. Now you see 10.20.30.5 is connected. Absolutely not a problem. Now I will try to do an RDP to the machine using a private IP. My antivirus is working. It has removed certain executables. That's fine. But you see this, I've got a prompt. That means that the connectivity is established. Now I really do not have to type in the credentials to prove something because what we had to prove was a private connection, a network connection to be established between my laptop to the virtual machine in Azure using a private IP, which is working perfectly fine. So with this lab demonstration, we have been able to successfully configure a point-to-site connectivity between your personal device and the one in Azure. Similarly, you can set up a site-to-site connection and an express route as well. In the upcoming video, we'll learn about different configurations of ExpressRoute, the capabilities, different kinds of connections you can have in ExpressRoute, and how you can have a coexistence of site to site and ExpressRoute together in your infrastructure.